I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. I took one of those attachment style quizzes online, and it told me I have an anxious attachment style, and then I went down a rabbit hole reading about it, and now I feel worse than before I knew, because everything I read makes it sound like this is just who I am. Like my childhood wired me this way, and I am stuck. So tell me the truth. Is my attachment style a life sentence?
No, it is not, and I am glad you asked me that directly, because I think the internet is doing a lot of damage with this one. People learn their attachment style, and they treat it like a medical diagnosis, like it is permanent, like it is a label they are stuck with forever.
That is exactly how it feels, like someone handed me a label and said good luck with that.
I hear you, and I want to tell you something that might change how you think about all of this. There is a body of research that proves your attachment style can change, not a quart, just a little. Fundamentally, researchers call it the earned security model. It shows that adults who had insecure childhoods can develop genuinely secure attachment, not fake it, not mask it, actually become securely attached, and on brain scans, earned security looks identical to the security someone had from birth.
Wait, you are telling me someone who grew up with a really difficult childhood can end up in the exact same place as someone who had loving, stable parents?
The exact same place, and the research behind this is one of the most fascinating stories in all of psychology. Let me take you back to the early 1990s.
Okay, I am listening.
A developmental psychologist named Mary Main was conducting what she called the adult attachment interview. She would sit down with adults and ask them to describe their childhood relationship with their parents, not just what happened, but how they felt about it, what they remembered, what they thought it all meant.
Okay, so she was not asking about their relationships now, she was asking about their childhood.
Right, and what she was really looking at was not the content of the story, but the structure. Was it coherent? Could they reflect on painful experiences without getting overwhelmed or shutting down? Could they connect what happened to them as children to how they behave as adults? And here is where it gets really interesting. She kept finding these adults who clearly had difficult childhoods, neglect, emotional unavailability, sometimes real hardship based on their history. They should have shown insecure attachment patterns.
But they did not.
They did not on every measure. These adults looked securely attached. Their relationships were healthy. Their emotional regulation was strong. They could be vulnerable with their partners. The researchers were genuinely puzzled. How could someone with an insecure childhood end up functioning like a securely attached person?
Wait, so what was different about them?
When Maine looked closer, she found one thing that separated these adults from people with similar childhoods who remained insecure. It was the way they told their story. These earned secure adults could say something like, "My mother was emotionally distant, and that made it really hard for me to trust people. But I understand now that she was dealing with her own pain, and I have learned to build trust in other ways." That is a coherent narrative. Compare that to someone who says, "Oh, my childhood was great, my parents were wonderful," but then cannot give you a single specific memory of being comforted.
Oh my God. So it is not about having a good childhood, it is about understanding the one you had.
That is it. Maine's research showed that it is not what happened to you that determines your attachment style. It is whether you have made sense of what happened to you. The key is coherence, not content.
Say that again. Coherence, not content.
Coherence, not content. And here is what makes this even more powerful on brain scans and in relationship outcomes. Earned secure attachment looks identical to lifelong secure attachment. Maine could not tell the difference. The people who earned it and the people who always had it showed the same patterns.
No way, so someone who grew up with a really tough childhood can end up in the exact same place as someone who had the perfect nurturing parents?
The exact same place, and it gets better. In 2002, a researcher named Chris Fraley published a meta-analysis in the Personality and Social Psychology Review. He looked at longitudinal studies that tracked people from infancy into adulthood, and he found that the correlation between infant attachment and adult attachment is only 0.39.
Okay, in normal human words, what does 0.39 mean?
It means the connection between how you were attached as a baby and how you are attached as an adult is moderate at best. A correlation of 1 would mean your baby attachment perfectly predicts your adult attachment. 0 would mean no connection at all. 0.39 is right in the middle, which means roughly 30% of people change their attachment classification over their lifetime.
30%. So almost a third of people end up with a different attachment style than the one they started with.
Almost a third, and that is not through some special program or intensive intervention. That is just life relationships, experiences, self-awareness, growing up. Life intervenes. Your childhood wrote the first draft of your attachment style. It did not write the final version.
Okay, I am not going to lie. I feel like I can breathe for the first time in weeks, because I really thought this was permanent.
It is not permanent, and there is more. A psychologist named Sue Johnson developed a therapy approach called emotionally focused therapy, or EFT. Based entirely on attachment theory, she published her findings in a book called Hold Me Tight in 2008, and her clinical research showed that 70 to 75% of distressed couples moved from distress to recovery using EFT, and 90% showed significant improvement.
75%? That is way higher than I expected for couples therapy.
It is, and the reason is that most couples therapy treats the symptoms, the fights, the communication breakdowns, the resentment. EFT treats the attachment system underneath. Johnson found that when you reach for your partner and they consistently respond with warmth and presence, your nervous system literally updates its model, it rewires.
Wait, so one good relationship can actually undo years of insecure wiring?
Not undo. Rewire. The old patterns do not disappear, but a consistently safe relationship teaches your nervous system a new default, and it does not have to be a romantic partner, a therapist, a mentor, a close friend. One secure relationship can shift your entire attachment orientation. And I want to be really clear here. We are sharing the science of how attachment can change. This is education, not therapy. If you are in a relationship that is causing you real pain, or if your attachment patterns are significantly affecting your life, please reach out to a licensed therapist. What we do here is help you understand the research. A therapist helps you apply it to your specific situation.
Right, and honestly, knowing the science makes me more likely to actually go to therapy, not less, because now I know there is something specific to work on.
That is exactly the right way to think about it.
Quick pause. If the 0.39 number just gave you hope, hit that like button. It really helps more people find this, and subscribe if you have not already. Tell us in the comments, what part of your story are you starting to make sense of? We read every single one. Okay, back to the science. Okay, so I have a practical question. You said coherence is the key. Making sense of your story, but what does that actually look like? Because I cannot just sit down and go, okay, childhood, make sense now.
That is a great question, and Maine's research actually points to something very specific you can do. I call it the coherence narrative. It is a 20-minute writing exercise, and it is one of the most powerful things you can do for your attachment health.
20 minutes? That is it?
That is it. Here is what you do. Set aside 20 minutes this week. Grab a notebook or open a blank document and write a one-page story of your childhood relationship with your primary caregiver, not a list of events, a narrative with a beginning, a middle, and a reflection.
Okay, what should I include?
4 things first. What was the emotional tone of your home? Not the events, the feeling. Was it warm, tense, unpredictable, quiet? Second, what happened when you were upset as a child? Did someone come? Did they dismiss you? Did they get overwhelmed themselves? Third, how did that shape how you handle closeness today? Can you draw a line from then to now? And fourth, what do you understand now that you did not understand then?
That fourth one feels like the important one. What you understand now.
You are exactly right. That fourth question is where coherence lives, because coherence is not about having a happy story. It is about having a story that makes sense to you, where you can hold the painful parts without being overwhelmed by them, and where you can see how those experiences shaped you without being defined by them.
So it is not about rewriting your childhood as good. It is about being honest about it and understanding it.
Exactly. And here is what Maine's research tells us. The act of writing that coherent narrative is itself a step toward earned security. You are not just describing your attachment history. You are actively reorganizing it.
That is kind of beautiful. The exercise is not just preparation for change, it is the change.
It is, and I want to come back to something you said at the beginning. You said learning your attachment style felt like a life sentence, and I know a lot of people feel that way, especially when they are in a relationship where both partners have insecure patterns. The anxious avoidant trap is real. Partners do trigger each other's worst patterns, but it is not a death sentence.
Okay, tell me why.
Because awareness changes the game completely when you can say to your partner, "Hey, my attachment system is activated right now and I am feeling the urge to protest, but I know that is my pattern and not necessarily what is happening." That is a completely different conversation than blowing up their phone. And when your partner can say, "I notice I am shutting down and I want you to know it is not because I do not care," that changes everything. Johnson's research shows that one secure relationship can rewire your entire attachment system. You and your partner can be that relationship for each other.
Oh, so we do not have to be perfect. We just have to be aware and keep showing up.
That is earned security in a sentence. You notice the old pattern activating, you pause, you choose a different response, and you repeat that hundreds of times over months and years. The new response becomes the default. Earned security is not the absence of insecure impulses, it is the ability to override them.
Override, not absence. I really like that because it means I do not have to wait until I am fixed to have a good relationship. I can build security inside the relationship.
You build it by practicing it every time you reach for your partner instead of withdrawing, every time you pause instead of protesting, every time you name what your nervous system is doing instead of just reacting to it. You are laying down a new neural pathway, and eventually that pathway becomes the highway.
Okay, my brain is buzzing. Let me try to bring this all together before it flies away. Number 1. Attachment styles are not life sentences. Fraley's 2002 meta-analysis shows a 0.39 correlation between infant and adult attachment. That means roughly 30% of people change their attachment classification naturally over time. Your childhood is the first draft, you are the editor. Number 2. Earned security is indistinguishable from lifelong security. Mary Maine's research found that adults who made sense of difficult childhoods showed the same secure patterns as those who had secure childhoods from the start. The key is coherence, not content. It is not about what happened to you, it is about whether you have made sense of it. Number 3. One corrective relationship can shift your entire system. Sue Johnson's EFT research shows 70 to 75% of distressed couples recover when they address the attachment system underneath the conflict. A consistently responsive partner, therapist, or close friend can literally rewire your attachment patterns. And number 4. Change is gradual and earned through practice. You do not become securely attached overnight. You notice the old pattern, you pause, you choose differently, and you repeat over time. The new response becomes automatic. That is earned security, not perfection. Just the ability to override old programming.
That was perfect, every single one, and I want to leave you with this. Your attachment style is the first draft. You are the editor, and the research says editors win.
I actually feel hopeful for the first time in a while, like genuinely hopeful, not in a toxic positivity way, in a there is actual science behind this way.
That is the best kind of hope, the kind with data behind it.
If this episode helped you believe that your patterns can actually change, do 3 things for us. Hit the like button so more people who need this hope can find it. Subscribe, because we decode a new behavior every Monday and Thursday, and leave a comment telling us what behavior you want decoded next. We read every single one. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their childhood is the first draft, not the final draft. We will see you in the next episode.
The Human Code. The science of why you do what you do.